أنا الطين أنا أحمل في طيات الحنين. أنا الطين أحمل معي ماض دفين. أنا الطين في لوني ورائحتي تاريخ قديم. أنا الطين أنا أحمل في طيات الحنين. أنا الطين أحمل معي ماض دفين. أنا الطين في لوني ورائحتي تاريخ قديم.
Shema put me in touch with her cousin, Norast, a sedimentologist in Basra, who, it turns out, had a mutual interest in seeing where a research collaboration might go. Looking for connections and concrete points of departure between geology and art, I contacted the Earth Sciences Museum in Cambridge to see if they had anything from Iraq. Matt Riley, collections assistant in paleontology, sent me a spreadsheet referring to hundreds of samples taken from the Hamar Formation. Accordingly, the samples were collected by government geologist William McFadyen via borings put down by the then British-owned Iraq Petroleum Company in the 1930s. I tried to understand the information on the spreadsheet, but it didn't mean much to me. So I sent it to Norast to see if she could shed any light on it. "They are samples from Al Hamar marshes near Basra," she replied. "I've been there on a field trip." I book a research visit with the Earth Sciences Museum to look over the collection from Al-Hamar Marshes. Working my way through a second drawer of samples, I come across a series of 12 small packages made up of heavy folded plain paper and held together with a rubber band which crumbles apart as soon as I touch it. The packages are scrawled across with various notes by geologist William McFadyen, who donated them to the museum 50 years ago. "Don't crush" is inscribed on the last package in capital letters. I open the package and find the contents, presumably, already very much crushed. Looking at them under the microscope, they appear to be mostly grains of sand and some slightly larger fragments of shells. I wonder what we can learn from these, and who McFadyen imagined he was writing to all those years ago.
I am bringing a suitcase of soil samples from Basra to Cambridge. Analyzing these via geoarchaeological methods will tell us the story of a particular ancient period of time and perhaps of unknown peoples who inhabited the land back then. I want to research the stratigraphy and climate change in the Mesopotamian Marshlands during the Quaternary period. Stratigraphy is like a vessel where we collect all our geological information in order to interpret and represent Earth's record. Over the last 3 to 4 million years, it is no longer only a record of rock, but of rock-human interaction.
I've come to the Geoarchaeology Lab in Cambridge to observe Norast processing the soil samples from Al-Hamar Marshes. It's a low-tech mechanical setup: stacks of sieves, a kiln, vices, blades, a sink, various chemicals in tubs with handwritten notes on them, and a grinding machine that needs to be constantly minded. Grubby, hands-on labour is what is required to uncover the contents of the muddy samples of earth. The work is minute, requiring patience and tenacity. Waiting weeks for the samples to dry out, sieving the soil through finer and finer meshes, compressing the earth, cutting the glass to precisely 0.4 millimetres, then attempting to grind the delicate thin sections, and when they crumble in the lapping machine, starting all over again. A 2-month opportunity to be in flow, processing the material carefully through the hands and the machinery, not knowing what will turn out or what new insights this may bring.
I imagine the clay samples would be large, cylindrical core sections, would require intensive processing. After all, Kelsey had talked about Naras filling her suitcase full of mud instead of clothes. Would I have time to process the raw clay deposits and experiment with construction? I tracked down Professor Charlie French, the UK custodian of the precious clay samples at the MacDonald Institute for Archaeological Research. To my surprise, he hands me a grip seal freezer bag containing 13 mini bags of fine dust. On the downside, a lot less clay than I'd imagined. On the upside, beautifully pulverised and sieved. I tell him I plan to use the samples to make a clay vessel. They're alluvial deposits, probably mainly limestone, he suggests. I doubt it'll be any good for making pots. You might be able to add it to a glaze. If you have any left, can I have it back? It's of scientific value. Even more precious dust than I thought. I bundle the samples in my rucksack, engulfed by waves of doubt and so many questions. Is this even clay? Where's the suitcase full of mud gone? How am I going to make a pot out of this?
This walk revolves around the story of a vessel that was made from mud brought in a suitcase from Iraq to the UK. You might imagine carrying the pot or fragments of a clay vessel.
تلفت لهجاتنا ولكننا متشابهين بالطين ولكننا متشابهين بالطين كلنا من طين كلنا من طين تلفت لهجاتنا تلفت ألواننا تلفت بلادنا ولكننا متشابهين بالطين ولكننا متشابهين بالطين كلنا من طين كلنا من طين كلنا من طين كلنا من طين وللطين مرجعنا وللطين مرجعنا.
If mud made me imagine a central cavern created by the coiling of clay. We walk in a circle in two places. A void wrapped around by intestinal extrusions of earth. Work begins in the ground. 26 people tracing and repeating a circular motion on the surface of the earth, in Basra and inspired by the shape of a chrysalis. Mud relishes the challenge that gravity has set. 2 days before the date we are due to walk, Naras found a place. It has not been easy to arrange for it to happen. The stick supports, and when it is fired by the sun, the stick burns. Naras is excited that people are connecting with the idea in Basra of the inner sanctum, where water and air pass. Around the coiled vessel, a lady she had bought flowers from says she would like to take part. Handling. She brings with her a bouquet and places it in the centre of the circle. Moving, squeezing, pressing, building up slow layers of mud on mud. Mud encases tiny creatures trapped in the soil. We invite people to focus on the sensation of treading on the layering earth. Life upon life. Extrusions extend outwards, more sticks. Snapped slightly, hinged limbs. Smoothed and squeezed. Will the cloud allow? Arms, legs, neck, head, held. In Basra it is night time, eyes gouged, clearly visible. Nose pinched, mouth punctured. In Cambridge, the light of the day is beginning to fade. And the clouds part
just as the walk begins.
Mud softens and hardens.
To reveal a pale moon.
The level of moisture needed
We are transporting
for the body
our sensory
to move.
cells to a different place in a way that is not possible via the
Too
computer
dry
screen.
and it is immobile, fixed in place.
Walking in a circle,
Too wet and rain dissolves the body back into the earth.
drawing the shape of the moon with our steps,
And then it rains.
and imagining people in another place doing the same.
The coil remains,
Afterwards, we write postcards to one another.
mistaken in years to come as the work of bees
It is not only cyclicity that connects
or
Naras's
some
ideas
previous
with mine.
civilizations,
The underlying questions about the
or
ways in
aliens
which
from a
digital
distant
spaces
galaxy.
impact on our humanity are salient for both of us.
vessels scattered across the surface
Naras
of the
conveys
planet,
this most poetically when she talks about the walks
broken into
embodying
fragments
coming to
and
be
tiny
too human,
particles reabsorbed or pieced back together
the ages
like
of the cloud.
jigsaws.
Don't crush is inscribed on the last package in capital letters.
Mixing the carefully separated samples together in a glaze bowl, I feel as though I'm committing a crime against geological science. I keep a thimbleful of each sample back. Once immersed in water, the particles swell, disintegrate and slake down.
Don't crush.
Slurry pours out onto a plaster back to dry and be wedged into a workable material. To my amazement, it passes the coil test for clay content.
Don't crush.
I have an idea. I just think if our listener hold a pieces of clay in their hands where they are listening to our record, I think they will get a different feeling, something like engaged more in meditation.
Don't crush.
Next, pinching and coiling, a whole day compressing and smoothing the particles into alignment. Now into the kiln, and we wait. It's a long nail-biting weekend.
Don't crush. Don't crush. Don't crush.
I begin with the near famous marshes to Basra, Al-Hammar marshes. I go to the tell today with Falah. There is a graveyard of children from the village, covered by the broken pieces of the pottery all around. We walk around to find a fresh, good open area to be dug. We start digging in Abu Haidar's backyard. It is really hard and fun at the same time. As we continue walking, we are surrounded by so many children and men, curious to find out what we will find in the hole. I ask the driver to drill as deep as he can, but after 4 meters down, the groundwater appears. I decided to stop drilling and enter the hole as quick as I can to take samples. The water is faster than me and the hole already deep. Hanging on the vehicle's arm, I ask the driver to lower me down. I take 2 types of samples at each horizon. I sketch the section and take photos. There are so many pieces of shard, bone, and plant roots. At one horizon, I find a break and beautiful broken vessel. When I'm finished, I raised my head to ask the driver to bring me up and realize Abu Haidar and all his children are sitting around the hole's arm, looking down inside, watching silently. I had walked without noticing them. All of us were engaged in different ways.
Squelchy.
Squelchy. Mud is a bit like paint, like a watercolor paint before you put the water on it.
Well, in some places around the world, they did use it as
Base,
a paint,
mix
right?
it with
Through the
a
history,
mix it with a colouring.
paint on the
pigmentation.
rocks, the mud, right? It's very like soothing. I might take some of that with me
You take a sample.
and draw with it this afternoon.
To my relief, this morning, a lightweight, peach-hued vessel graciously emerges from the kiln, perfectly intact.
أنا الطين أحمل معي ماض دفين أنا الطين في لوني ورائحتي تاريخ قديم أنا الطين أنا أحمل في طيات الحنين أنا الطين أحمل معي ماض دفين أنا الطين في لوني ورائحتي تاريخ قديم.
My brothers drove me to the airport. At the first checkpoint, an officer finds the sample and asks me to wait until he has spoken to customs. A police officer and the director of customs look through the contents of my suitcase. Removing one sample, I'm asked to wait. Finally, they return to let me know I can take the soil samples with me to Cambridge. Only the case is too heavy. Is there something I can leave behind? I remove the small cotton bag containing all the personal belongings I had planned to take with me.
I walk alone with my steps over the alpine French mountain hills, muddy and wet. With each step, I go with my mind to the roots of my home country, to Iraq. My nostalgia of the marshlands and the wet footsteps of walking on it with the heat of the ground and the sound of smashed old palm tree leaves under the feet. While breathing the alpine cold air, I ask myself, am I here or there, right now? Do I belong to this mud or the other one? Is my steps taking place in both places at once? Can our roots be like this ground, made of layers of history, layers of distractions and movement, layers of smell of the past and the future? This is me. I am made of layers, just like the mud I'm standing on.